The lighthouse was supposed to be empty. That was the first thing Emily Carter told herself when the floor beneath her boots cracked open and the storm wind screamed through the broken glass above her head. Empty, abandoned, forgotten. That was what the coastal records said. That was what the university file said. That was what the fishermen on the mainland had told her with lowered voices and nervous laughs, as if the island itself could hear them. No one lived on Blackthorn Island anymore. No one had lived there for 27 years. And yet, beneath the foundation of the old lighthouse, buried under salt-rotted stone and black sea mud, Emily found a human skeleton chained to the earth. For a long moment, she could not move. Rain hammered the roofless chamber above her. Waves crashed somewhere below the cliff, so violently the entire island seemed to tremble. Her flashlight shook in her hand, throwing broken pieces of light across the bones. The wrists were still bound in rusted iron. The ankles, too. Whoever had died here had not been buried. They had been imprisoned. Emily swallowed hard, forcing herself to breathe through the cold shock spreading inside her chest. She was a marine biologist. She studied erosion patterns, shoreline collapse, and the way the ocean slowly ate stone. She was trained to notice fractures in rock, shifts in sediment, warning signs in old structures. She was not trained to kneel beside a chained corpse under a lighthouse at midnight. Her flashlight slipped over the ribcage, then the collarbone, then something half buried near the skeletal hand. A ring. Emily reached for it before fear could stop her. The metal was tarnished but unmistakably expensive. Heavy, antique. The kind of thing that did not belong on an island, forgotten by maps and weather reports. She wiped mud from the face of it with her sleeve. A crest appeared beneath the grime. A. Wolf. A crown. And one word engraved in tiny, perfect letters. Volkov. The storm seemed to go silent. Emily knew that name. Everyone knew that name. Volkov Shipping. Volkov Hotels. Volkov Security. Volkov Holdings. A family so wealthy their donations renovated hospitals, funded universities, restored cathedrals, and bought entire governments without ever appearing to ask for anything in return. But there were other stories, too. Whispered ones. Bodies in harbors. Judges who retired suddenly. Rival businessmen who vanished on yachts. Politicians photographed smiling beside a man no journalist dared question. Adrian Volkov. The billionaire no one called a mafia boss, unless they were very brave, or already dead. Emily dropped the ring. It hit the stone with a small metallic sound. Then, her radio crackled. Static. She jumped so hard her shoulder hit the wall. "Dr. Carter?" The voice was faint. "Emily, do you copy?" It was Mark Ellison, the island caretaker, the only other person staying at the temporary research cabin near the Western Cove. Emily grabbed the radio. "Mark, I found something." Only static answered. She pressed the button harder. "Mark, listen to me. There's a body under the lighthouse. Human remains. Chained. I need you to call the mainland police right now." A long silence. Then Mark's voice returned, barely audible. Emily, something about his tone, froze her. It was not shock. It was fear. "Mark, you need to leave the lighthouse." "I can't leave. This is a crime scene." "No," he said, and his voice cracked. "It's a grave." The radio hissed. Then he whispered, "And graves like that are never empty for long." The connection died. Emily stared at the radio. A sound came from above. Naught thunder. A footstep. Her flashlight snapped upward. The broken staircase leading back to the lighthouse door was dark, wet, and empty. But Emily knew what she had heard. Someone was inside the lighthouse. She grabbed the ring, shoved it into the pocket of her raincoat, and backed away from the skeleton. Another step sounded above. Slow, measured, not careless like someone searching. certain like someone arriving. Emily found an iron ladder bolted into the far wall. It led into a narrow maintenance tunnel she had noticed earlier, but ignored because half the entrance had collapsed. Now, it looked like survival. She climbed. Stone scraped her palms. Rust stained her fingers. Wind roared through the cracks as she pulled herself into the tunnel and crawled forward on her elbows, the flashlight clenched between her teeth. Behind her, below, the chamber door groaned open. A man's voice spoke into the darkness. "Fin here." Emily's blood turned cold. She kept crawling. The tunnel spat her out behind the lighthouse, halfway down the cliff path, where rain struck her face like thrown glass. She slipped in the mud and caught herself on a black thorn bush, tearing open her palm. She did not stop. By the time she reached the research cabin, she was soaked through and shaking so badly she could barely fit the key into the lock. Mark. No answer. The cabin door swung open. The lights were off. Her laptop was gone. So were the external drives containing all her research scans. The satellite phone lay smashed on the floor, and Mark Ellison sat in a chair by the window with his hands tied in front of him. Dead. Emily covered her mouth before the scream could escape. A piece of paper had been pinned to his jacket with a knife. One sentence, written in black ink. "Leave the island before he comes." Emily stumbled backward. Her breath came too fast. The cabin walls seemed to close around her. Rain rattled the windows. The sea roared outside. Then headlights swept across the glass. Not one pair. Several. Emily turned off her flashlight and dropped to the floor. Through the window, she saw black SUVs driving up the hill from the private dock. No one could reach Blackthorn Island in this weather. No one should have been able to dock, but the convoy moved through the storm like the island belonged to it. The lead vehicle stopped outside the cabin. A man stepped out. Tall, dressed in a black overcoat that the wind pulled around him like a shadow. He did not hurry. He did not look afraid of the storm, the darkness, or the dead man inside the cabin. Two men with umbrellas moved toward him, but he ignored them. Rain soaked his dark hair. It ran down the sharp lines of his face. The headlights carved silver into his eyes. Emily knew him instantly. Adrian Volkov. He looked at the cabin, then at the window where Emily crouched unseen in the dark. Or so she thought. His gaze locked exactly where she was hiding, and his mouth tightened. Not with surprise, with recognition. Emily crawled toward the back door, her wet fingers slipping on the floorboards. She had just reached the kitchen when the front door opened. No knock, no warning, just the sound of power entering a room. "Dr. Carter," Adrian said. His voice was calm, low, controlled, the kind of voice that made panic feel childish. Emily grabbed the nearest object from the counter, a small diving knife she used for cutting tangled ropes underwater. Adrian appeared in the doorway before she could run. For 1 second, neither of them moved. She stood barefoot in soaked field clothes, hair plastered to her face, knife trembling in her hand. He stood perfectly still in the rain-dark doorway, wearing a coat worth more than her entire research grant, his grey eyes taking in the blood on her palm, the mud on her knees, the fear she was trying and failing to hide. His gaze shifted to the knife. "You will not get close enough to use that." Emily tightened her grip. "Try me." Something almost like interest crossed his face. Not amusement. Not softness. Interest. "You found the chamber. You mean the body." His expression did not change. "You should have left it buried. A man was murdered. A man was punished." Emily's stomach twisted. "You knew he was there?" Adrian stepped into the cabin. The men behind him remained outside. "I knew something was beneath that lighthouse. I did not know she would lead you to it." Emily frowned despite herself. "She?" The tiniest pause. The island. It was a lie, and Emily knew it. "You bought the island," she said. "Yes." "When?" "This morning." "This morning?" Her voice rose. I called the coastal office 2 hours ago, and they told me the land transfer had already gone through. Yes, you bought an entire island in less than a day. Adrian's eyes held hers. I have bought larger things for less important reasons. Emily should not have felt the force of that sentence under her skin. Less important reasons. He said it as if she mattered, as if her discovery had changed something, as if he had crossed an ocean of power because a woman he had never met found bones under a lighthouse. "Why are you here?" she asked. "To take you off this island. I'm not going anywhere with you. You are." "No. I'm calling the police. The caretaker is dead. Your satellite phone is destroyed. Your boat has been cut loose. The storm has grounded every civilian aircraft within 80 miles. His voice lowered. "There is no one coming for you except the men who killed him. And you. Yes. Why should I believe you're different?" Adrian stepped closer. Emily lifted the knife. He stopped, not because he was afraid, because he chose to. That control frightened her more than violence would have. He looked at her hand. "You are bleeding." "That's not an answer. It is the only thing in this room currently irritating me." Emily stared at him. "You're insane." "No. I am very focused." A sound cracked outside. Gunfire. The window behind Emily exploded inward. Adrian moved before she could even process the sound. His arm wrapped around her waist, dragging her down hard behind the kitchen counter as bullets tore through the cabin walls. Emily screamed. Adrian covered her head with his body. Glass rained across the floor. His coat smelled like rain, smoke, and expensive cologne. His body was hard against hers, impossibly controlled while chaos ripped the world apart around them. "Do not move," he said near her ear. More shots slammed into the cabin. Emily's heart was beating so violently she could barely breathe. Adrian drew a gun from beneath his coat and fired 3 times without looking afraid. Outside, someone fell. Another burst of gunfire hit the cabin. Adrian's men returned fire from the front. Emily clutched his sleeve. "Mark, he is gone. You don't know that." "I do." The cold certainty in his voice broke something in her chest. Adrian turned his head just enough to look at her. For a second, the violence outside disappeared. His eyes moved over her face, searching for injury. Not casually, obsessively, as if every inch of her mattered, as if he had already decided the world would answer for anything it did to her. Then his expression hardened. "We leave now." "I'm not leaving the body." "You will leave the body, or become one." He grabbed her wrist. Emily tried to pull away, but another bullet tore through the cabinet above them, spraying wood across her hair. Adrian pulled her toward the back door. She stumbled over broken glass. He caught her, without looking. Outside, the storm was vicious. Black sky, white rain. The sea below, roaring against cliffs like something alive and furious. Adrian pushed Emily behind him, as his men formed a shield around them. But halfway to the SUV, a flare exploded from the hillside. Red light flooded the rain. Emily saw them then. Men in dark, waterproof gear, moving between the rocks. Not island locals, not police. Hunters. One raised a rifle. Adrian turned and fired. The man dropped. Emily froze. Adrian's grip tightened around her wrist. "Keep moving. You killed him. He aimed at you. That doesn't—" "Yes," Adrian said, turning his cold eyes on her. "It does." The possessiveness in his voice stunned her into silence. They reached the SUV. Before she could climb in, Emily remembered the ring in her pocket. Her hand moved instinctively over it. Adrian saw. His face changed. For the first time since he entered the cabin, something slipped through his control. Not fear. "Fine. You have it." Emily backed away a step. It was beside him. "Give it to me." "No." "Emily." The sound of her first name in his mouth was too intimate, too certain, as if he had spoken it before. She stared at him through the rain. How do you know my name like that? His jaw tightened. Get in the car. How long have you known about me? Another shot cracked through the storm, striking the SUV window. Adrian shoved her into the back seat and climbed in after her. Drive, he ordered. The convoy tore down the cliff road, headlights cutting through rain and fog. Emily twisted around, watching the lighthouse vanish behind them. Then the first explosion lit the sky. The old lighthouse erupted in fire. Orange flame climbed the tower, devouring the broken windows, the iron balcony, the place where the bones had waited for nearly 3 decades. Emily slammed her hand against the window. No. Adrian caught her before she could reach the door. She turned on him, furious and shaking. You burned it. No. Liar. His eyes stayed locked on the burning lighthouse behind them. If I had burned it, he said quietly, you would not have seen it happen. The answer should have terrified her. It did, but the grief in his voice terrified her more. The convoy raced across the island toward the northern cliffs, where no road appeared on Emily's map. Yet one opened before them, hidden between stone walls and black pine trees. At the end stood a mansion carved into the cliff itself. Dark glass, grey stone, iron gates, waves exploding below it in white fury. Volkov House. That was not on any survey record. Emily stared at it as the gates opened. You had a mansion on this island. Yes. Since when? Before you were born. Her skin went cold. Adrian looked at her then, and the shadows inside the car made his face unreadable. Your mother knew this house. Emily stopped breathing. My mother died when I was 8. No, he said. Your mother disappeared when you were 8. Emily slapped him. The sound cut through the car like a gunshot. The driver went still. The guards in the front seat did not move. Adrian slowly turned his face back toward her. A faint red mark appeared on his cheek. His eyes were colder now, but not angry, almost proud. Good, he said. Emily's voice shook. Do not use my mother to manipulate me. I do not need to manipulate you. The truth will do that without my help. The SUV stopped before the mansion entrance. Emily reached for the door, but Adrian caught her wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, hard enough to stop her. Listen to me carefully, he said. Rain beat against the roof. Fire glowed behind them on the cliff road. His face was close enough that she could see water clinging to his lashes. There are men on this island who will cut the truth out of you before they let you carry it to the mainland. I don't know any truth. His eyes dropped briefly to the pocket where she had hidden the ring. Yes, you do. Emily's throat tightened. What was his name? Adrian went very still. The skeleton. He looked away. Only for a second. But she saw it. The control. The grief. The wound beneath the empire. When he looked back at her, the man in the seat beside her no longer felt like a rumor. He felt dangerous because he had once been broken and rebuilt himself into something untouchable. His name, Adrian said, was Nikolai Volkov. Emily whispered. Who was he? Adrian opened the car door. Cold rain rushed in. My brother. Before Emily could speak, the mansion lights went out. Every window went black at once. Adrian's hand moved to his gun. From the darkness outside, a voice echoed through the rain. Send out the girl, Volkov. Emily's blood turned to ice. Adrian stepped out of the SUV slowly, calmly, like a storm answering another storm. He looked toward the dark mansion, then at the armed shadows gathering beyond the iron gates. His voice was quiet, but every man heard it. If you want her, he said, you come through me. Then the gates exploded. The gates exploded inward. Iron tore from stone with a sound so violent it seemed to split the storm in half. Emily screamed as shards of metal flew across the driveway. The SUV rocked from the blast, its windows flashing white with fire. Adrian moved before the smoke even cleared. He reached back, caught Emily by the waist, and dragged her down behind the open car door just as gunfire ripped through the rain. Bullets struck the vehicle in sharp, metallic bursts. One of Adrian's men fell near the front tire. Another returned fire from behind the second SUV. The mansion loomed above them, dark and silent, its windows dead, its stone walls soaked black by the storm. Beyond the shattered gates, figures moved through smoke and rain like ghosts with rifles. "Stay behind me," Adrian said. Emily's ears rang from the explosion. "You're bleeding." He looked down briefly. A thin red line cut across his temple where a piece of metal had grazed him. "It is not important." "It is to me," she said before she could stop herself. For 1 second, Adrian's gaze sharpened. Not softened, sharpened, as if those 4 words had reached somewhere bullets never could. Then, another shot slammed into the door above her head, and the moment vanished. Adrian fired twice into the storm. 2 shadows dropped near the gate. Emily pressed herself lower behind the SUV, her soaked hair clinging to her face, the ring in her pocket burning like a secret against her thigh. The skeleton was Adrian's brother. His brother had been chained beneath the lighthouse, and now men were trying to kill her because she had found him. Nothing in her life had prepared her for the speed at which truth could become a weapon. Adrian turned to one of his guards. "Open the lower entrance. The power is down. Manual override. Boss." The tunnel could be compromised. Adrian looked at him. "Then shoot anything inside it." The guard nodded and sprinted toward a stone retaining wall beside the mansion. Emily watched him press his palm against what looked like ordinary rock. A section of the cliff shifted inward, revealing a narrow black passageway carved beneath the house. Of course, she thought faintly. Of course the Mafia billionaire had a hidden tunnel under a cliffside mansion. Adrian grabbed her hand. This time, Emily did not pull away. They ran through rain, smoke, and gunfire. Halfway to the tunnel, a man emerged from the darkness near the collapsed gate and raised a weapon toward Emily. Adrian saw him. He stepped in front of her without hesitation. The shot fired. Adrian's body jerked. Emily cried out, but he did not fall. He lifted his gun and shot the attacker once. The man disappeared into the mud. Emily stared at Adrian's side, where blood was spreading beneath his coat. "You were hit. Keep moving." "Adrian." His hand tightened around hers. "Not here." There was something in his voice that made her obey. Not fear, trust. That was the terrifying part. They reached the tunnel just as another explosion shook the driveway behind them. The hidden door closed with a grinding roar, swallowing the storm, the gunfire, and the burning remains of the gate. Inside, the passage was cold, damp, and lit by emergency lamps buried along the floor. The walls were raw stone. Water dripped from the ceiling. Somewhere beneath them, the sea crashed against the cliff. Adrian released her only long enough to reload his gun. Emily caught his arm. "Let me see." "No. You're bleeding through your coat." "I have bled before." "That doesn't make you immortal." His eyes flicked to hers. "No, but it makes me difficult to kill." The calm arrogance should have angered her. Instead, her hands shook as she reached for his coat. Adrian caught her wrist. Not roughly, almost carefully. "Do not look at me like that." "Like what?" "Like I am a man worth saving." Emily swallowed. "You just took a bullet for me." His jaw tightened. That was strategy. That was a lie. He held her gaze too long. Then, he let go of her wrist. Emily pulled his coat aside. The bullet had torn across his ribs, not deep enough to kill, but enough to leave blood sliding down his white shirt. She pressed her palm against the wound. Adrian inhaled sharply. It was the first sound of pain she had heard from him. The tunnel seemed to shrink around them. His body was close. Too close. Heat rising through wet fabric. His face shadowed by the emergency lights. Emily could feel the tension in him, not just from injury, but from restraint. He looked down at her hand against his body. You should be afraid of me. I am. Then why are you still touching me? Because you keep standing between me and death. Because you knew my name before I gave it to you. Because every time I think you're a monster, you bleed like a man. Emily said none of that. Instead, she pressed harder against the wound. Because if you pass out, I don't know how to open your secret mafia doors. For the first time, Adrian almost smiled. Almost. Then a metallic sound echoed from somewhere behind them. A hatch opening. Adrian's expression turned cold again. He pulled Emily behind him and lifted his gun. 3 of his men moved forward silently. The tunnel bent left, then widened into an underground chamber beneath the mansion. Steel doors lined one wall. Screens glowed weakly on a backup generator. A security station had been destroyed. Monitors cracked, chairs overturned. Someone had already been inside. Adrian saw it at the same moment Emily did. His men had been killed. 2 guards lay on the floor near the inner doors. Emily pressed her fist to her mouth. Adrian's face did not change, but something darker entered his eyes. No shock. Accounting. The kind of silence that came before punishment. A voice crackled from one of the broken monitors. Adrian. The screen flickered. A man appeared through static. Older, silver-haired, elegant in the way knives were elegant. He wore a black suit and stood somewhere dry and warm, far from the storm. Behind him, Emily saw carved marble, candlelight, and men standing with their hands folded. Adrian went still. Cassian. The name landed like a curse. The man on the screen smiled. You always were sentimental about old graves. Adrian's voice remained calm. You sent men to my house. I sent men to clean up your failure. Emily stared at the screen. Cassian's gaze shifted to her. His smile widened. And there she is, Dr. Emily Carter, marine biologist, daughter of Margaret Carter, granddaughter of no one important according to the records. Emily's blood ran cold. How do you know my mother? Cassian ignored her. He looked back at Adrian. You should have killed her before she reached the lighthouse. Adrian stepped closer to the monitor. If you say that again, I will remove your tongue before I kill you. Cassian laughed softly. There it is. The famous Volkov restraint. Your father would be ashamed. My father is dead, and yet he still understood one thing better than you. Cassian leaned closer to the camera. Women who uncover family secrets do not survive them. The monitor went black. For a moment, the only sound was dripping water. Emily turned to Adrian. Who is he? Cassian Moretti. One of the 5 families? Yes. Why does he know my mother? Adrian looked away. That was answer enough. Emily stepped in front of him. No, don't do that. Do what? Decide what truth I'm allowed to handle. His eyes hardened. This truth got your caretaker killed, and hiding it got your brother chained under a lighthouse. The chamber fell silent. Adrian stared at her. His men looked away. Emily felt the danger in what she had said, but she did not take it back. Adrian stepped closer. You think courage and recklessness are different because no one has made you pay for either yet. Emily lifted her chin. And you think control is the same as protection because no one has ever told you no and lived? For one suspended second, the air between them felt more dangerous than the armed men outside. Then Adrian spoke, quieter. You keep confusing survival with freedom, and you keep confusing possession with care. His eyes moved over her face, slowly, deliberately. You are alive, because I possess what others fear. Emily's pulse betrayed her. And what do you possess? His gaze dropped briefly to her mouth, then returned to her eyes. Tonight, he said. You. The words should have made her step back. Instead, she forgot how. One of his men cleared his throat. Adrian turned away instantly. The moment sealed back under ice. We move upstairs. The mansion above was not dark because it lacked power. It was dark by design. Adrian led Emily through a private elevator that opened into a candlelit hall lined with black marble, old oil portraits, and windows facing the storm-lashed sea. The house felt less like a home than a fortress built by someone who expected betrayal in every room. Servants moved silently, lighting lamps and securing shutters. Armed men appeared and disappeared through hidden doors. Somewhere distant, generators rumbled back to life. Emily caught glimpses of luxury, so severe it almost felt lonely. A grand piano, untouched by dust. A dining table set for 12, but empty. A wall of books behind glass. A fireplace big enough to burn small trees. And everywhere, the Volkov crest. Wolf, crown, silence. Adrian's wound was treated in a study overlooking the Black Sea. He refused to sit until Emily did. She noticed that, and hated that she noticed. A doctor in a grey suit cleaned the wound, while Adrian stood by the window, shirt open, expression unreadable. Emily sat near the fire, wrapped in a blanket someone had placed around her shoulders. She should have felt safer inside the mansion. She did not. Safety, she was beginning to understand, was not the absence of danger. It was the presence of whoever the danger feared. The doctor finished stitching Adrian's side. "You need rest." Adrian buttoned his shirt. "No, you lost blood. I still have enough." The doctor did not argue. No one argued with Adrian Volkov, unless they were Emily Carter, apparently. When they were alone, Emily stood. "I want the ring back." Adrian's hand paused at his cuff. "You still have it?" "Yes." "Then you lied when I asked for it." "You didn't ask. You ordered." He turned to face her. "Give it to me." "No." "Emily, I found your brother. I found the ring. My caretaker is dead. My research is gone. Someone knows my mother, and you have a mansion hidden on the island I was assigned to study." Her voice trembled, but she kept going. "So no, I'm not giving you the only evidence I have until you tell me what is happening." Adrian watched her in silence. The firelight cut shadows across his face. Then he walked to the bookcase and pressed his hand against a carved wolf head. A section of shelves opened inward. Emily stared. Behind it was a narrow room. Not a safe. En archive. Old files. Photographs. Maps. Letters. Sealed in plastic sleeves. Surveillance stills. Medical records. Newspaper clippings. Some new. Some decades old. Emily stepped closer, then stopped, because on the center table was a file with her name on it. Emily Ann Carter. Her heart slammed once. She turned to Adrian slowly. "You have a file on me?" "Yes." "How long?" He did not answer. Emily walked to the table and opened it with shaking hands. Photographs spilled out. Emily at university. Emily on a research boat. Emily at her mother's funeral. Emily walking alone through a train station in Edinburgh. Emily standing outside her apartment with groceries. Her breathing turned shallow. "You've been watching me." Adrian's face was unreadable. "Yes." "For how long?" "Since you were 17. The room tilted. Emily backed away from the table. "That's 12 years. "Yes." "You stalked me for 12 years?" "I protected you for 12 years. You had men follow me?" "Yes." "You took pictures of me?" "Yes." "You knew where I lived?" "Yes." Emily's voice broke. "You knew me before I knew you existed." Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, maybe, or regret. It was gone almost immediately. "I knew who wanted you dead before you knew there was a reason to run." "That doesn't make this okay." "No." The honesty stunned her more than denial would have. Adrian stepped closer, but stopped when she flinched. He saw it. His jaw tightened. "I never entered your apartment. I never touched your life. I never allowed anyone near you. Accept yourself. I stayed away. Until now. Until you found Nikolai. Emily looked back at the file. A photograph showed her at 21, laughing in a cafe with friends. She barely recognized that girl. Carefree. Unwatched. Or so she had believed. Why me? She whispered. Adrian's voice was lower now. Because Nikolai died saving your mother. Emily turned. The words moved through her slowly. My mother. Adrian walked into the archive and removed a sealed envelope from a locked drawer. He held it for a moment before giving it to her, as if surrendering it cost him something. The envelope was marked in faded ink. Margaret Carter. Emily opened it. Inside was a photograph of her mother, younger than Emily had ever seen her, standing on the steps of the same cliffside mansion. Beside her stood a man with Adrian's eyes, but warmer. Nikolai. Emily touched the photograph. She was here. Yes. With your brother. Yes. Were they? No. Adrian's voice sharpened. Then, after a pause, not lovers. Emily looked up. That answer had come too fast. Adrian noticed her noticing. His expression closed. My brother loved someone else. Who? Adrian did not answer. Instead, he placed another document on the table. A death certificate. No, not death. Witness protection authorization. Emily read the name twice before it made sense. Margaret Elise Carter. Her mother had not died. Her mother had been relocated. Emily's hands went numb. This is fake. No, she died. I was there. I saw the coffin. You saw a coffin? No. Emily shook her head, backing away. No, don't do this. Adrian took one step toward her. She raised a hand. Don't. He stopped. The fire cracked behind them. Emily could barely hear it over the roaring in her ears. Her mother had disappeared when Emily was 8. That was what Adrian had said. Not died. Disappeared. And now, on the worst night of Emily's life, the man everyone feared had opened a hidden room and handed her proof that the grief she had carried for 20 years might have been built on a lie. Where is she? Emily whispered. Adrian's voice was careful. I do not know. You expect me to believe that? Yes. You know everything. No, he said. I know what I failed to protect. That stopped her. For the first time, Adrian looked older than his power. Not weak, never weak, but haunted. Nikolai took your mother from this island the night the 5 families came for her. He hid her under a false identity. He sent me one message before he vanished. Adrian's voice hardened around the memory. Protect the girl if I do not return. Emily could not move. The girl, she said. You? She looked at the file again. Every photograph, every report, every line of surveillance suddenly changed shape. Still invasive, still unforgivable, but no longer random. A promise, a terrible, obsessive, controlling promise carried out by a man who did not know how to care without making it look like a prison. You should have told me. I planned to never meet you. Why? His eyes found hers. Because everyone I love becomes leverage. The word love landed between them like a dangerous object. Adrian seemed to realize it the same moment she did. His face went cold again. I meant my family. Emily nodded once, though neither of them believed that was all. A sudden alarm screamed through the mansion. Red lights flashed across the archive. Adrian turned instantly. One of his men rushed in. Boss, the east wing has been breached. Adrian's voice became ice. How many? At least 12. Moretti, not confirmed. But they're moving toward the archive. Emily clutched the envelope to her chest. They're after the documents. Adrian looked at her. No. She felt the answer before he said it. They're after you. Gunfire erupted somewhere above. The mansion shook. Adrian reached for Emily, then stopped just short of touching her. The almost touch felt worse than if he had grabbed her. Come with me, he said. Where? There is a sea tunnel beneath the house. Another tunnel? This island is mostly tunnels. Of course it is. His mouth flickered, not quite a smile, and then the lights went out again. This time, the darkness was complete. A crash sounded from the hallway. Then a voice called from beyond the archive door, "Dr. Carter." Emily froze. She knew that voice. Impossible. Her hand tightened around the photograph. The voice came again. Closer now. "Emily, sweetheart, don't be afraid." Her knees nearly gave out. Adrian went absolutely still beside her. His gun rose. Emily whispered, "Mom?" From the darkness outside the archive, her mother answered. "Come to me, Emily." Adrian caught Emily's wrist before she could move. His voice was barely audible. "That is not your mother." Emily turned to him, tears already burning her eyes. "How do you know?" His jaw tightened. "Because I buried the woman pretending to be her 5 years ago." The archive door burst open, and standing in the red emergency light, wearing her mother's face, was a woman holding a gun. The woman stepped into the ruined archive with the gun raised. For one impossible second, Emily could not breathe. The face was older than the photographs, sharper, paler, but the eyes were close enough to break something inside her. "Emily," the woman whispered, her voice trembling with manufactured grief. "My baby." Emily's knees weakened. Adrian moved before she could take even half a step. He placed himself directly between them, one arm sweeping back to hold Emily behind him, his gun already lifted, his expression colder than the storm raging above the cliffs. "Say her name again," Adrian said quietly, "and I will remove your tongue before I kill you." The woman's mask flickered, only for a second, but Emily saw it. Not pain, not love, annoyance. The archive lights continued to fail in broken pulses, turning the room into flashes of nightmare. Nikolai's files scattered across the floor, blood on Adrian's shirt, smoke seeping beneath the door, and this stranger wearing the face of a ghost. "Adrian," the woman said, almost amused. "Still so dramatic." Emily's hand closed around the edge of a metal shelf. "You know her," she whispered. Adrian did not look back. "I killed her once." The woman smiled. "No. You killed the body Cassian gave you." Adrian's jaw tightened. For the first time since Emily had met him, something raw moved across his face. Not surprise. Rage. The kind that had been buried so deep it had fossilized into silence. "Who are you?" Emily asked. The woman's eyes slid toward her. "Someone your mother trusted." Emily flinched. Adrian's arm pressed her back harder. "Do not listen to her." "But you want to listen, don't you?" the woman said softly. "You want to know why your entire life has been guarded by monsters, why your mother vanished, why your father was erased from every record." Emily's pulse thundered. "My father." Adrian went still. The woman noticed. Her smile widened. "Oh," she murmured. "He never told you that part." A violent crash shook the mansion above them. Dust spilled from the ceiling. Men shouted somewhere beyond the archive corridor. Moretti's men were inside. Adrian fired once. The bullet struck the wall beside the woman's head. She did not scream. She only laughed. "You missed." "I never miss," Adrian said. "That was a warning." "No," she replied. "That was fear." Another explosion ripped through the upper floor. The archive door frame buckled. A red emergency light began spinning at the far end of the room. Adrian grabbed Emily's wrist. "We move now." The woman lifted her gun fully. "Cassian wants her alive." Adrian's eyes darkened. Then Cassian should have come himself. He fired. The woman twisted away, the bullet tearing through her shoulder. She staggered back into the corridor, slamming against the wall. But before Adrian could finish it, gunfire erupted from behind her. Adrian shoved Emily down. Bullets shredded the archive shelves above them. Glass rained over Emily's hair. Adrian covered her body with his own, one hand cradling the back of her head as metal screamed and paper burst into flames. "Stay under me," he ordered. Emily could feel his heartbeat. Fast. Too fast. For a man who never seemed afraid, he fired over the shelf without looking, each shot precise, each one followed by a body hitting the corridor floor. Then he pulled her up and dragged her toward the rear wall. "There's no door," Emily gasped. "There is." He slammed his palm against a carved Volkov crest, hidden behind a curtain of old maps. A section of stone groaned open. Cold salt air rushed in. Emily stared into the darkness beyond. A tunnel, ancien, vet, descending into the cliffs. Adrian pushed her inside and followed, sealing the wall behind them just as another wave of bullets tore into the archive. The tunnel swallowed them whole. For several seconds, there was only darkness and the sound of Emily's breathing. Then Adrian struck a flare. Red light flooded the stone passage. Water streamed down the walls. The tunnel sloped toward the sea. Emily looked at him, shaking. "My father," she said. What did she mean? Adrian's face hardened. "Not now. No." Her voice broke. "You don't get to say, 'not now,' after watching me for 12 years. He stopped. The flare hissed in his hand. Above them, the mansion trembled under another blast. Emily stepped closer, fear turning into something sharper. "You knew about my mother. You knew about Nikolai. You knew about me. What else did you hide?" Adrian looked at her then, really looked, and the control in his eyes began to crack. "I hid what would keep you alive." "That is not an answer. It is the only answer that matters. To you," she snapped. "Not to me." For a moment, he said nothing. Then his voice dropped so low it nearly disappeared beneath the sound of the sea. "Your mother did not run because of my family." Emily froze. "She ran because of yours." The words struck harder than the gunfire. "My family?" Adrian looked away, and that small movement frightened her more than anything. "Your real father was not a fisherman. He was not a researcher. He was not the harmless man in the stories they gave you." Emily's throat tightened. "Then who was he?" The tunnel shook. Stone cracked overhead. Adrian grabbed her and pulled her against him as part of the ceiling collapsed behind them, sealing the path they had just taken. Emily clung to his coat. His arms locked around her with a force that felt less like protection now, and more like panic. When the dust settled, his hand was still in her hair. His mouth was close to her temple. Too close. "Adrian," she whispered. He closed his eyes. For one dangerous second, he looked like a man losing a war inside himself. "I should have sent you away," he said. "But you didn't." "I couldn't." The confession hung between them. Not love. Not yet. Something darker. More frightening. Something neither of them had the strength to name. Emily lifted her eyes to his. His gaze dropped to her mouth. The sea roared beneath the cliffs. Then voices echoed from farther back in the tunnel. Italian. Moretti's men had found another entrance. Adrian's expression changed instantly. The mask returned. But not fully. Not anymore. He took Emily's hand. "Run." They moved deeper into the sea passage as bullets sparked against the stone behind them. The tunnel opened into a natural cavern, where black water surged through jagged rocks. A narrow ledge curved along the cliff wall, barely wide enough for one person. Emily hesitated. Adrian stepped in front of her. "Eyes on me." "I can't." "Yes, you can." A bullet struck the rock near her shoulder. Adrian pulled her forward, shielding her with his body as they crossed the ledge. Twice, waves crashed high enough to soak them. Once, Emily slipped, her foot vanishing over the edge. Adrian caught her before she fell. His hand clamped around her wrist with brutal strength. For one suspended heartbeat, Emily hung above the violent black sea. Then, Adrian hauled her back into his arms. He held her there, breathing hard. Not because of the climb, because he had almost lost her. "Do not do that again," he said harshly. Emily stared at him, soaked and shaking. "Fall? Leave my reach." The words hit both of them at the same time. His face changed. Hers softened, and then another shout echoed through the cavern. They kept moving. At the far end of the cave, Adrian found an iron gate, half submerged in seawater. He kicked it open, revealing a lower tunnel carved directly into the island's foundation. Emily recognized the mineral patterns in the stone. Basalt fractures, tidal erosion, old survey marks. Her breath caught. This leads to the lighthouse. Adrian nodded once. Nikolai built part of it before he died. Why? Adrian looked toward the dark mouth of the tunnel, because he knew he was going to be betrayed. They waded through freezing water, up to their knees. The farther they went, the louder the fire became. Not above the mansion now. Ahead, through cracks in the stone, Emily saw orange light pulsing against the night sky. The lighthouse was burning. The abandoned tower that had started all of this was now wrapped in flames, its broken windows glowing like eyes. Emily's chest tightened. If it burns down, it won't destroy what matters, Adrian said. How do you know? He reached into his coat and pulled out a water-damaged page from Nikolai's journal, the one he had taken from the archive before the power failed. Emily had not even seen him take it. The page was marked with a hand-drawn map, the Lighthouse Foundation, the sea caves, and beneath them, a chamber labeled in Nikolai's handwriting. Not a grave, not a vault, a confession. Emily stared at the word, then at Adrian. What did he hide down here? Adrian's face had gone pale. I don't know, but his voice told her that was not entirely true. They reached the final cave just as the tide surged inward. Above them, the lighthouse groaned, burning against the storm. Ahead, hidden behind a curtain of black seaweed and stone, was an arched doorway carved into the cliff itself. At its center was the Volkov crest, and beneath it, a second symbol Emily had never seen before, a crest of two families, intertwined. Volkov and Carter. Emily stopped breathing. Adrian stepped forward, placed Nikolai's ring into the hollow of the stone, and turned it. The hidden chamber opened. Inside, untouched by fire, untouched by time, a single lantern flickered to life, and on the stone table in the center of the chamber lay three things: a blood-stained wedding certificate, a sealed letter addressed to Emily Carter, and a small silver cradle, engraved with the name of a child who was never supposed to exist. Emily reached for the letter with trembling hands. Then Adrian saw the name carved beneath the cradle. His entire body went still. No, he whispered. Emily looked down, and the name on the cradle was not Emily's. It was Adrian Volkov,